This week's episode of Aussie Tech Heads is brought to you by Start New Company. Register your company immediately today with ASIC. ABN, TFN, GST registration is also available directly from the portal. Also set up your family trust and self-managed superannuation fund and more. All at startnewcompany.com.au. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/startnewco and keep an eye out for our regular specials. Start your new company now within 10 minutes of lodgement. All legal company documentation provided after registration. startnewcompany.com.au. And also brought to you by athwebhosting.com.au. All our servers are operating on SSD drives, immediate activation, SSL certificates, Aussie support, domain registration, and more. Easy install WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, and 300 other one-click installations. Generous space and bandwidth, auto backups, WordPress help and maintenance plans are also available on Contact. If your web page is important for your business or your life, contact us today. Aussie support, secure services, athwebhosting.com.au. And now for the show.
Welcome to episode 711 of the Aussie Tech Heads, recorded on the 4th of February 2021. I'm your host, Jason Oakley, and this is my co-host, Apu Nahasapima Padalon. Welcome to the 711. Please come again.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Hey, at least I can say it.
This is true.
Do you know what's very handy, and I think a lot of people would use? That counter at the start that says show starts in 2 minutes, and you know, okay, I can just jump ahead.
I know.
The meat is.
I don't know about anyone else, but I know I use it. I know exactly how long I've got before the show starts. It's great.
Have a drink, go to the loo.
Yeah, exactly. I know I've got 2 minutes. As long as I'm back before it gets to 5, it's all good.
How's stuff your way?
Hot and wet.
Hot and wet.
Still sitting on 30 degrees in here again, because that's the way I roll.
Yeah, I got the AC going, try and get a bit of coolish air in here.
It's been had a fair bit of rain the last few days, so
yeah, I think we're going to get a bunch of it soon.
But other than that, it's all plodding along and same old, really.
I'll see if I can give you a very quick summary of a terrible Sunday I had. So I went to a friend's place to hook up a new computer that I got him. Not new, old one of mine, but it's newish for him because his mum's got a 20-year-old crappy PC. Plugged it in, everything's going fine. Okay, well, you want to get better Wi-Fi, try my router. So I plug in my router, that works, everything's going great. Then we all like, they got a voice over IP phone that's got a little box called OB100. Obviously, Star Wars fans made that. And so plug it into the router, phone didn't work. Okay, so we try every combination for the next half an hour trying to get the phone to work. And I'm like, okay, I'll come back to that. Let's just get everything else. We'll put the old modem back in and see if that fixes it. Maybe they've got some configuration in the modem just for SIP. Some things have got SIP channels and stuff. Plug it back in, not working. Had to call up tech support. They're like, what modem you got? We said Netgear, a D-Link. They said, oh, we haven't sold those in 5 years. Bye. So that was really handy. And it wasn't actually one of theirs anyway, because the person who owned it had brought an ADSL modem from the office to plug into the NBN. And basically one of the local computer companies set it up as a kind of switch, because if you plug the NBN into the fourth port, it works like a switch. And then yes, the phone still wouldn't be coming up, so I gave up on that, but still couldn't get the internet to work. 5 more hours I was there. The house is like 40, 45 degrees inside. They put the air conditioner on, but forgot to switch it to cool. So I'm sweating buckets. My hanky is just completely wet with sweat. I'm drinking water. I had some Panadol because I had a migraine from the heat and everything. And then in the end, they're like, well, what if we were like, well, it's not working here at all. No internet. They checked it at the ISP and they said we can see that you've had a lot of dropouts and stuff. So I'm going, well, I don't know what's happened. It's been working for years here. So we we're like, okay, well, what if we move the modem into the lounge room, which is where they wanted it anyway, because I suggested to do that since they couldn't get Wi-Fi up the front of the house because they had this crappy modem, which is why I brought mine, which I wanted to do anyway. Didn't think it was going to be this much trouble, but it was 5.5 hours, and I put the modem in the lounge, plugged in the home phone, tried to phone it, still wouldn't work. So I was like, okay, look, I'm going to have to go. I was going to be going to the shops, but I don't have time for that now, and I've got a massive headache. So I'm going to go, walked out the door, turned around, came back in, went, oh, I forgot to put the Wi-Fi card back in the computer I gave you, so it won't have internet. So I plugged that in, pinged a few places, got the web browser up and went home. So what we surmised from that is that the Ethernet cable they've had there for years had a dodgy connection.
Chose
Probably
that moment to fail.
The wires were probably just bent in the way that they were touching, but if you pulled it out and moved it a tiny bit, the wires disconnected. So they're not using that. They're not also needing now to use the very long cable that was RJ12 that was going from the lounge room around into the computer room where it was plugged into this OB100 thing. And everything's working much better than it was. Their old computer's not on there because it needs to be plugged in because it doesn't have Wi-Fi or anything. So I said, if you want that, you can either get another very long cable, one that's not broken, or get a Wi-Fi card installed. But I'm not going to be doing that because I didn't say that to them. But yeah, and then I was talking to them next day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the VoIP SIP phone came back up and just started working." So it must have been like what you said. Needs about an hour sometimes just to reconnect, which is ridiculous. I mean, you have a power outage, you can't use your phone for an hour when it comes back.
No, I've had 2 or 3 of the old style VoIP phones where they use a separate box. Not the newer ones that just use your net connection, but the ones that ran through the dedicated boxes. And some of them were horrible. Some of them would take a good couple of hours to. I don't know if they had to get the new IP or if they had to link the phone number to the IP address. I don't know how they work, but some of them were absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, maybe it held on to IP for too long through DHCP and had to wait for it to expire and then get a new one. Then go, it's terrible, terrible.
It was back in the day where you used to pay per meg, obviously, so you'd turn your modem off when you weren't using it. But then when you wanted to make a phone call, you'd turn it on and you'd have to wait an hour before you could make a phone call.
Oh, God.
So we just left it on after that. It just wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
But
better than when back in the day when somebody lifted up the phone to make a phone call and your modem dropped out.
Yeah, it's used to that up there too.
What's this noise going on? I want a phone, Marin. Well, you can't, all right?
Yep.
So, the only thing that I seem to be buying technology every week, I don't know what's going on, is another 8 gig RAM for my Minecraft server.
Oh, you found that gig?
Which it should like, because it's only running on 8 gig at the moment. It's running 2 Minecraft servers, a vanilla and a modded one, and our modded one needs minimum 6 gig, and the other one should have like minimum 3. 4 would be nice, but put 16 in there, and then my daughter wants to run a modded of some sort on there as well, so we'll have plenty to spare.
Yeah.
But it won't take any more than 16. That's the maximum according to the motherboard manual. So
I mean, I remember when I had my first 486 motherboard, I had 8 30-pin 256K DINs and 4 1 meg 72-pin sticks. So I had enough. 6 meg of RAM in my first 486.
Nobody will need more than that, surely.
I used to run Windows 95 on that quite happily. No, well, I mean, I couldn't run Windows and play games. Like, I used to run DOS to play games. But even, like, Duke 3D and Rise of the Triad and Quake, that'll run on that. Descent. Yeah.
Descent was awesome. We used to have a long serial cable up the hallway and play Descent against each other. It was fantastic.
We used to do that with Rise of the Triad.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Jibs. He's dead.
Yeah. So, yeah, but that's, now we're talking, like, my system's got, I think I've got 64 gig of RAM. Like that's bigger than
What
a
do you
hard.
do with it all?
That's bigger than a hard drive I had 10 years ago. Like, oh, that was just like, he goes, look, I can put 32 in it, in the because I wanted high speed because of the data transfer for recording and stuff. And he goes, I can put 32 in it for an extra $4. I can put 64 in it. I went,
What's $4 when you do that?
you know, why not?
Wow.
And I can put, I've done there in 2 slots. I got another 2 slots. I can put another 264. So I can have 128 gig of RAM. Theoretically, load everything in the swap drive and never need to use the hard drive.
Nice.
Just load everything in the RAM disk.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So it's
It's
DDR4 2400 is the fastest, and
it's just ridiculous
Biggest
how
to do.
technology's changed.
yeah.
That old vintage forum that you're on it too. The old vintage forums on Facebook, and you see people getting, I got my XT today, and I'm like, dude, I had one of those. I think I've still got
I
one.
don't get
Dad's
excited about PCs
You
retro
know.
stuff. Old 8-bit computers like BZ200, Commodore 64, even Spectrum's okay. Amiga.
See those. Yeah, I was gonna say, see those Spectrum cards that got put up today.
Who what?
They had these really rare cartridge and add-on
Oh,
cards.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's only known to be like 10 in the world or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
They got the Mega 65, which emulates the Commodore 64 and Commodore 65, which only 100 actual computers were released. Now has a core for Spectrum, and they think they might be able to put an Amiga core on it as well that you could load up.
Oh, nice.
Because it's all FPGA, so they
Mm.
just, you install the software and it says configure yourself like an Amiga. So it goes, okay, here's an Amiga, configure itself like a
And-
Commodore 64.
The cool part about that was a lot of the games that loaded up, or even not even games, a lot of the word processing stuff, that the same branding across different platforms was an entirely different user experience.
Yeah.
You know, like, it was so weird how that worked. You could have, what was it called? I can't remember what it's called on the Amiga now. What was it, Notepad? WordPad?
Yeah.
Something like that, but it was entirely different to the Windows version of it, and,
Yeah.
you know.
It was interesting. I found out that on Linux there's a text editor called Vi.
Yep.
That was first created on Amiga, and then they ported it over to Linux, and then it became like the default for all the hardcore people who know how to do programming properly and edit text files and stuff. Use Vi.
Well, a lot of the smaller releases of Linux now, like the ones that they release for where they want low latency, like for CNCs and mills and stuff like that, a lot of those have Vi as the default editor. Yeah. That's how I discovered it. So the one I'm using for my my K40 laser, the software I've installed for that, or the Linux for that, it had a Vi. I'd never used it before.
Oh right, you had to Google. Did you watch
Yeah.
your YouTube? Because
Pretty much.
there's always a running joke that nobody knows how to exit out of Vi correctly.
Oh, I exited
Once
that.
you're in there, you're trapped there forever.
Well, yeah, I didn't know. I'm trying to find a program to edit. I'm like, there's got to be an editing program in here somewhere. And I'm looking, I'm like, it's not that one. It's not that one. Oh, Vi. What the heck's Vi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Might have Nano's another one.
No, it doesn't. It does now.
Nano. Yeah. It does now because
Pseudo get. But it didn't. It only had Vi on it. So I like Nano. I use it quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
Can't remember what the other one I used to use before that.
the
Simplistic
GUI. It also had a GUI version of it.
I've never done Emacs. I'm never going to do Emacs.
No, Emacs.
Just say no, kids.
Yeah, pretty much. Don't do Emacs. Or iMacs. Or just Macs. Just don't do Macs.
Anything. Apple Macs.
Yeah, dear. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's been a fun and interesting week. That's for sure. There's been nothing happening interesting in tech, but outside of tech, it's been an interesting week.
I guess we should look into some news about stupid things the Australian government want to do still that we've talked about the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Really, that's kind of a. You kind of said way too many words there. You could have just stopped with the stupid things the Australian government does. That
Yeah.
I mean, that's
The stupid Australian government.
yeah.
Stop.
I mean, really, that's as much as you've got to say. So, that's gonna be fun. Alrighty, you gonna go or am I gonna go? I'm going to go.
Well, you're going
I'm
to talk
gonna go.
about what they're trying to do with Google, and then I'll follow it up with the other
Well,
two.
he's trying to Google himself again. Scott Morrison
Don't Google.
has described this in. This is actually an updated version, so it may not tie in as well as you'd hope. But anyway, this morning they had another meeting. Scott Morrison has described this morning's meeting with the global CEO of Google's parent company over Australia's proposed media ban in code as both constructive. Yes, you heard it right. He's described this meeting as both constructive.
Okay, then.
The Prime Minister said the talks had brought the relationship between the Commonwealth and the tech giant into a much more positive space, whilst also implying that Australia would nevertheless continue to forge ahead with its plans to introduce the new laws. The proposed laws would see global tech giants such as Google forced to pay for media content generated in Australia, which they repost. It follows a 12-month review into Google and Facebook by the competition watchdog. There's also been far strong pushback from Google and Facebook over the proposed changes. Last month, Google threatened to switch off the search function in Australia if the media giant did. If the code becomes law, Google will have no real choice but to stop providing search to Australia, Google said. That's the worst case scenario and the last thing we want to do, but if they don't, basically if they introduce this, that's what we're going to do. Scott Morrison, being the hugely tech-savvy human that he is.
You said the S word.
I've been able to send them the best possible signals that should give them great encouragement. Yep, this is him.
Okay.
I have been able to send them the best possible signals that should give them a great encouragement to encourage with the process.
I'll have what he's having. What kind of... Is that drugs or alcohol?
It's brain non-functioning.
Yeah.
That's the best way. That is the best way to enable the matter settled.
You tell he worked in marketing, right?
I think we've been able to get that much into more positive space about the ability to continue to provide services. Does he know how to speak or what?
No. What even is grammar? She's an old lady that reached with grandpa.
So basically he said, hey Google, we're going to charge you money. Google said, no, we'll just leave. Then he went, no, you don't understand. I'm going to charge you money. Google's like, you said that. He's like, no, but really, I'm going to charge you money. It's like, but we'll just stop searching. Well, you can stop searching, but I'm still going to charge you money. Now, bearing in mind that when we first did this story, it'd be pushing 3 months ago when we first started it, the government said we have nothing to do with this process.
Yep.
They specifically stated that this was between the media companies and the internet giants. Said it had, or the internet distribution companies. Said it had nothing at all to do with the government.
So what's changed, do you think, Mr. Will?
That Google decided that they didn't care about the Australian media and was just going to stop them. And the government, no, that's not what we meant. Come and let's talk. What I meant to say is the Australian government's trying to introduce these procedures, not the media companies. And then Google went, yeah, we don't really care about you either. No, you don't understand. We're going to introduce
government. Governments are important and very powerful, don't you know?
That's like the Australian government's like Ralph out of The Simpsons.
I bent my Wookiee.
It's like that's literally their mindset. It's like the I'm a really, really important person. Nothing at all happens without my consent. Sure, I ate my glue, but that's not the point.
I really won. All right, I'll take my ball and go home. Fine, but I still won.
Yes.
No, we're taking our ball.
It's so bad. It really is.
We don't need search.
But we do because
software giant Microsoft is confident its search product Bing can fill the gap if Google pulls its search over required payments to media outlets. Scott Morrison said. Australia has introduced laws that would force internet giant Google and social media heavyweight Facebook to negotiate payments to domestic media outlets whose content links drive traffic to their platforms, with which out they would not exist. However, the big tech firms
Tell me
have
that.
called the laws unworkable and said last month they would withdraw key services from Australia if the regulation went ahead. Those services include Google's search engine, which is 94% of the country's search market, according to industry data. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella has since spoken with Morrison about the new rules. The tech company told Reuters, and on Monday, Morrison said the software company was ready to grow the presence of its search tool Bing, the distant number 2 player. But we have a better idea that's even going to be better than Bing. The Greens are calling for the coalition government to investigate the establishment of a publicly owned and independent search engine for Australia.
Yeah, because the government's going to establish that. Yeah.
It's independent.
Well, the
Which
government
might be good.
says it's independent. Trust us.
The government owns the NBN. That's why it's so fantastic and wonderful, and it's not controlled. It doesn't have any snooping or any of those things on it. Google and Facebook are currently locked in a bitter stoush with Morrison government over proposed media code that will see them negotiate payments. Microsoft Chief Executive Satya Nadella promised that his search engine could replace it, but the Green spokesperson for media and communications, Senator Sarah Hanson-Young, rejected that, saying Australia can't be reliant on corporations to provide essential services such as access to information online. Currently, access to the internet is controlled by a very small number of very powerful corporations, she said. We should not seek out other foreign giants to fill the gap of Google, whether it's Microsoft or anyone else, as they'll still profit off the data of Australians and be beholden to shareholder interests. Instead, the Greens say Australia needs a search engine that's owned by and accountable to the public and not shareholders, and is independent of the government, like the ABC is.
Exactly like the ABC.
She said that. We believe it too. Such a search engine could be set up with global best practice data privacy standards to ensure users own their data and are aware of what information is collected on them and how it's used. Users don't know. Don't own
to
their
shut up, do
own
you, love?
data currently, and they're not aware of what information is collected currently, because users think that private mode on their web browser will let them get away with anything because nobody can track them. Trust the users.
Yeah,
it's
so
fine.
because we don't have like Web Wombat and all these other Australian ones that we have.
Plus,
Actually, we don't have.
about DuckDuckGo, even it's not Australian, but it's not Google, so they should be happy with that.
But what I find hilarious is that this media thing they're implementing isn't just Google and Facebook. It is any repository of searchable information. So therefore, if they open their own search engine,
It'll have to pay money.
it'll have to pay money to
media.
themselves for opening their own search engine.
So that means tax money from that made our search engine and is running it goes to the media companies.
No, you know who will pay for it? Biden.
He's going to pay for it. He's
Yeah.
got a lot of money.
You just send him a letter saying that you're a rich prince, you need a heap of money, and they'll pay it.
There you go.
Well, I mean, they must, because Biden, using the money from the unemployment program, oversaw $600 million in losses to Nigerian fraud scheme. Susan Levin, the departing head of Washington State's Employment Security Department, reportedly will run a federal agency office that assists states in processing unemployment claims. But her transition into the Biden's administration role comes amid an unemployment fraud scandal at the state-level department that cost Washington State over $600 million. The fraudulent unemployment claims were believed to be linked to the well-organised Nigerian fraud ring used identity stolen prior data breaches, such as a massive 2007 Equifax breach. More than 122,000 fraudulent claims made in the state siphoned off the cash. The Secret Service announced that Washington State was the main prey of the scandal. The other states were also targeted. California had its own unemployment scandal amounting to over $11 billion, while another $20 billion in possible losses are still being investigated.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
So basically, like $800 billion, no, $20 billion, what's that? 600, yeah, so $650 billion ish went to the Nigerian prince who wrote him a nice letter.
No, if I write a nice letter, will I get $60 billion?
I'll just take $1 billion. I'm not greedy. I mean,
Right. It's like my dad with the lotto. He won't enter into it unless it's like 100 million. If it's 5 million, who wants $5 million? I mean, what can you do with that?
but the good news is that Washington State, who just spent $660 billion on, $600 million on frauds, were able to recover almost half of that during the federal law enforcement and financial institutions collaboration. So there's that.
They got half back.
They got half of the small amount, the 600 million. What about the 11 billion and the 20 billion still being investigated? So they've spent, what's that, 31 billion, and they got back. What did I say? They got back 357 million after 2 years of how much manpower and effort and time and money spent to get. So, yay, America, you've done gangbusters there.
Telstra has lifted a year-long pause on job reductions under its T22 transformation program, briefing teams yesterday on plans for a net reduction of up to 1,425 roles. The telco paused reductions in March last year, citing uncertainty created by the COVID-19 pandemic, and then further extended the pause until February 2021. As reported by the Australian Finance Review, the hiatus has now come to an end, with plans unveiled for a new round of cuts under Telstra 2022 or T22, the transformation announced back in mid-2018. We briefed some of our teams on proposed changes that would see a net reduction of up to 1,425 roles across Australia and our international locations as we continue to transform Telstra. While these role reductions have always been part of our existing T22 commitments, decisions like this are always difficult, and we understand the impact on those involved and their families. We'll be supporting our people and the families with free 24/7 access to our Employee Assistance Program. If these changes go ahead, we'll also work with those impacted to help them secure another role at Telstra. Where that's not possible, they'll be supported by our Career Transition Program and industry-leading retrenchment benefits. If the planned cuts occur, it is understood that Telstra will be more than 90% through its T22 reductions. To complete the program, it's understood that a further net reduction of 800 staff will be proposed sometime later in the calendar year 2021. Where are those jobs going, Mr. T?
No, not to me, that's for sure.
Here's the shore, and it's off that way.
And the ones that aren't are going to subbies, pretty much. So if you thought you had issues with Telstra before, guess what?
Gonna get better?
Yes, they'll fix. If you thought you had problems with Telstra before, they're going to make it seem like you had no issues at all.
Yeah. You were having a fantastic time. You didn't know when you had it good.
Well,
didn't appreciate it.
That reminds me, last week I went to, had to go and upgrade some of my phone plans because I've some of my plans with Vodafone for like 6 or 7 years now. And so I went in there and said to the lady there at Vodafone, I said, okay, I've got 5 phones on the one family plan, all sharing data. This is what I've got. What can you do? And she looked through it all and she went, okay, you got 2 choices. You can either go to a flat fee and everybody pays $35 a month and you'll get a data pool of 85 gig all up for everyone to use, which we've got 50 now. We're chewing through that between the 5 phones. And then she went, or I can keep you on your existing plans, which are higher than the current plans, give you your 20% off for having 5 phones with us per plan, then give you the new equivalent pricing on those plans based on what that plan would be now, but keep you on the old price and take the discounting off the old price. So we ended up averaging like $30 a phone instead of $35 a phone, and I now have 650 gig of data per month
Nobody will be able to get through that.
So the good part is I'm going to be cancelling my home internet very soon.
And Cam's going to use YouTube Kids anytime he wants anywhere.
Well, it does anyway. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's cool now because I can tether my phone to his tablet or whatever when we're out, and I haven't got to worry about it. You know, it's brilliant. It's 650 gig. That's in the data pool. I think each phone has 30 or 40 gig on top of that.
All right.
So it's
not too bad.
It's pushing a terabyte of total data usage per month.
It's worth asking for this stuff, isn't it?
And then I went into Telstra and said, "Hey, you're going to give them $100 you stolen from me?"
And they said no.
And they said no. They basically, we cancelled our contract with them like 5 years ago, and every month for the last 5 years, they've sent me a credit note of $100. And every month for the last 5 years, I've had rung them up and sat on hold for half an hour to get my $100 back. And it's never happened. And I've been into the Telstra store 3 times now.
Yeah.
And they don't help either. So
sounds like a visit to a TLA.
Well, I've got a I went to the ombudsman and rang them. They said, "Oh, just write us a letter." It's for $100. It's not worth it. Like, you know. But I bet you Telstra's happy they're earning interest on that for the last 5 years. No, Brett, that was Vodafone. Vodafone has some absolutely amazing plans at the moment. So if you get Vodafone, you don't, obviously it's not suitable for everybody because not everybody gets Vodafone. Out here, it's actually better than Telstra Signal anyway. So,
yep.
But yeah, Vodafone is definitely where to be.
That was the other problem. You know how I was giving that story at the start about that computer and internet? I was on call that weekend with work, so I couldn't connect to their Wi-Fi with my phone because that wasn't working properly with the internet. But also, they were in a black spot in a just out of town. They're in the next suburb, which is just out of town, which is still a major area, but just inside their house where I was working in that area, no Telstra signal. They had to go out onto the front veranda to make phone calls every time on the mobile. What a pain.
I found some of those. I took a photo of what she wrote down for the plans.
Yep.
So some of them. Okay, so the way it worked was the $65 plan, which is an old plan, which is my old plan. I used to get 10 gig of data, I think. So that equivalent plan now gives you 200 gig of data. It was $65. They've taken $11 off it, which makes it $54, plus 20%, but the 20% comes off the $65, not the reduced price. And then the same thing, that plan come down, that plan come down. So originally we were paying like $165 and getting 60 gig. Now we're paying $136. This is for 5 phones, remember? We're paying $136 and getting getting 560 gig plus a package bonus of 560 gig. So actually getting 1.1 terabyte.
Nice. And you get good speeds there, 4G?
Yeah, I mean, you know. So it's absolutely. These are old plans that they're grandfathered in. Now that we were going to go to the new $35 and $45 plans, which is like 50 and 60 gig per plan. But this way worked out not only cheaper, but more data.
How does that make sense?
Because because we're on a family plan, so you can have 5 devices on the family plan. And
it just sounds funny.
I know,
that
but
you
because
pay less, get more data.
Because the initial price is actually dearer, and the percentage discount comes off the original price that you're paying, not the discounted price they give you for being with them for so long. So you get a discount off the original price plus a plan discount for being on that plan. So the $45 plan, you take 25% off that plan, which brings it down to whatever that comes down to. You take, $10 off that plan, and then you take the $11 plan bonus off that plan. So that $45 plan becomes a $25 plan.
Nice.
And you get 50 gig for the privilege.
nearly half price.
Oh, sorry, 200 gig for the privilege. When the 200 gig plan's like a $70 plan. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, crazy.
So before we go any further, Patreon
What's
people,
this stuff?
Patreon, and PayPal people who give us money. Not only the people you see on the bottom of the screen, we've also got people who donate anonymously because they don't care about the publicity.
What's that word? Abominably.
But,
Abominably.
Monomonom. So we are doing we call it Patreon only. It's a pays only show. It's like pay-per-view. You pay, you view. And we're doing that hopefully at the moment it's going to be once a month, so we probably hopefully depending on what time, if I'm still alive when I get home Sunday, we'll do one this week. Otherwise we'll be postponed till next week.
Aussie Tech Roundup.
Aussie Tech Roundup, yep. It's basically a 10 to 15 minute show focused primarily on Australian news. You don't have all the chatter. It's basically as Nick Zemecki, a guy I watch on YouTube, he does his normal segments and then he re-edits his videos and he calls them the unwaffled videos. It's him without the talking. It's the same video and it goes from a 35-minute video to a 7-minute video.
If he's not talking, there's not much to listen to then.
Oh, he does wood carving and stuff. But it's the same sort of thing. We'll cut them down to like 10, 15 minutes. One thing I would ask is that people who have listened to it, and I know there's a few because I've been watching a viewer count go up on it. Can you guys please drop us feedback in your favourite media, whether it's email, whether it's through the Patreon system, however you want to get in contact with us, even on the YouTube video there. We're just curious to know what you guys, given that this is for the guys who are paying, kind of want to tailor it to what you guys want. So if you guys can get in contact with us and give us feedback on what you feel, how you would like the show structured and what you think we can add in or take out or whatever you can do, it'd be really handy because we're targeting at you guys, so it's for you guys. So we'd love the feedback on that one.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell.
Ding, ding, ding. Oh wait, that's a different bell. That's the fight.
Womp, womp.
The Fight Club. Don't talk about Fight Club. So I need to thank, of course, we need to thank Kate and Bouncing Yellow Bouncing Yellow Skull, and Daniel and Amanda, and David Bird, and Chris, and Andrew G, and
You all rock.
all the others who are anonymous. Anonymous. Wasn't he an artist? Anonymous. I'm pretty sure he was an artist in
Dead Mouse.
San Fran. Anonymous, Dead Mouse. There you go. See? I knew I had mouse in the name.
I'm not a dead mouse.
I'm not a dead mouse. I'm not a dead mouse.
I'm not a dead mouse. You are. Shut up.
So we do thank you guys. It means a great deal to us, and it really helps us, have a reason to do the show. So thanks heaps for that, guys. It helps.
Do you want to do the next one or back to me?
No, you can, because I accidentally just closed the wrong window.
Well,
Because I'm clever like that.
Amazon founder Jeff Bezos will step down as chief executive of the e-commerce giant, turning over the reins to the company's longtime cloud computing boss, Andy Jassy. Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, will transfer the role of executive chair this summer, the company said on Tuesday. The looming transition marks the most radical shakeup in Amazon's corporate ranks in its nearly 30-year history. Bezos moves into a new role with a title made for him that keeps him at the company in a position where he'll focus on innovation at Amazon and hands off the top job to a trusted deputy. If you do it right, a few years after a surprising invention, the new thing has become normal. People yawn. That yawn is the greatest compliment an inventor can receive, Bezos said. Under Bezos' stewardship, Amazon evolved from an upstart online bookseller into one of the world's most popular internet marketplaces, able to quickly deliver a vast catalogue of products and services. Bezos' creation helped set in motion a massive change in the way people around the world shop, as people began buying toothpaste to car parts to groceries on their PCs and phones. Amazon also triggered a sea change in physical retail, accelerating the shuttering of shopping malls and stores. That shift is only accelerated as the coronavirus pandemic fueled a surge in online shopping as worried customers shunned stores. So there you go. No more Bezos in charge, but I don't think that'll be the last we'll hear of him.
And I'm pretty sure his missus isn't overly upset about the 50-50
4 billion
split.
she got.
Yeah, I know, right?
Donated heaps of it too.
No, it's all, of course. See, people don't understand the reason rich people donate money is because it's a tax write-off. If they don't donate the money, they have to pay tax. If they donate it, they get it all back.
Right.
So you either spend it and get it back, or you don't spend it and lose it. So what are you going to do? You're not giving it away out of the kindness of your heart.
No.
You're giving it away.
Sounds counterintuitive, but get rid of your money means you keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you donate it all and give it away and send it to charities and invest in startups and all that sort of stuff, and you get it all back. You hang on to your money, you got to pay it all out in tax. Yeah. It's yeah.
Taxes are for poor people.
I do. So the other thing I would like to mention as well is American Pie, the song. Yeah, run the song that was done a long, long time ago.
In a galaxy far away, Naboo was under an attack.
Might be a different version.
That's the Weird Al version,
I know,
apparently.
the better one. But anyway,
Yeah.
It's been 50 years since that was released.
Oh, I feel old now. Thanks.
You feel old. Don McLean's 70. He released it when he was 20, so that means he's 70 now.
Whoa.
So yeah, but yeah, obviously it's there's been a bit. Obviously, for people who don't know what it's about, basically it's about the plane crash that killed Big Bopper and Buddy Holly and the other guy that I have complete mental blank. The three of them anyway, band members. Well, 4 if you include the pilot.
It was his fault.
Well, I guess technically it probably was.
He wasn't cleared for IFR flying. Was it IVR flying?
Yeah,
so he
instrument
flew
only.
in through a storm that he had no training on.
I was watching a doco on it though. It's interesting that the Buddy Holly and the other one flipped a coin for it.
Yep.
And then Big Bopper and I need to look up the other names.
Is it Frankie Valli or something?
Yeah, and then one of them flipped the coins and they ended up. I can't remember. I should have had this. I did have this page loaded, but I closed it by mistake.
Richie Valens.
Richie Valens, that's the one. But yeah, so it's basically all about that. And there's a couple of really interesting docos about it. And if you want a quick, concise one, actually, watch Adam the Woo on YouTube. He does a 20-minute, fairly good roundup on it, on how it all went down. But there's been a few... Hey?
It went down, literally.
Well, yeah. But there's been a few things come out about it, obviously, lately, because it's coming up to that sort of time. But I'm a fan, as most of you guys know, I'm a fan of Home Free, Acapella. I quite like their stuff. But they actually they've just released it. They've done American Pie featuring Don McLean. They got him back in the recording studio, which apparently hasn't been in one for a long time. And he'd always wanted to do this kind of offbeat version. It's kind of a different version to what we're familiar with. And he'd never really had the resources or the ability to do it, and caught up with Home Free, and being a vocal band, they have a lot of a cappella band, they have a lot of different vocal types that made this possible. And it's still 8.5 minutes, so it's still as long as the original. But it's mixed up a bit. It's a bit of a different feel about it. It's really, really good. But it was good to see Don back in the studio and looking really good. Not bad for a 70-year-old. He does pretty good. So, but yeah, I just thought, yeah, October 24th, 1971, it was released. Well, that was the album, I think. Actually, I think the song was released in May. I think it was earlier, but yeah. I just thought that was interesting, and some people might enjoy that, and some people not. And if you don't, too bad.
Can't play it because we'll get a ding from YouTube.
Literally, I'll play it, and in 12 seconds, I'll have a copyright strike come up, because that's just the way it's been working.
Show shut down.
So, I just opened a Google tab and it goes, "It's been 6 months since your last Google account visit." I literally was just in my Google account.
Maybe it was open for 6 months since you last opened it.
Thanks, Google. You're on the ball. Good going, guys. Thanks for that.
Photo card holders living in and around Sydney's suburb of Penrith will be the first to trial New South Wales' new digital photo card ahead of future statewide rollout. Customer Service Minister Victor Dominello kicked off a long-awaited trial of the digital pass on Tuesday following successful rollout of the digital driver's licence. More than 2.4 million New South Wales motorists, or 41% of drivers, have now downloaded a DDL. significantly more than the government's initial estimate in its October 2019 launch. Under the digital photo card trial, thousands of card holders who live in eligible suburbs around Penrith will be able to download a digital alternative to their physical photo card. Eligible postcodes are 2750, Penrith and Emu Plains, 2745, Glenmore Park and Mulgoa, 2727, including Kingswood and Warrington, 2748 and 2773. Testers will be able to use the digital pass to enter licensed venues, as well as hotels, major retailers, convenience stores, and pharmacies in the 2750 trial area from today. With a digital photo card, as long as you have your phone, you always have your ID with you. It's hassle-free and only takes minutes to download. Like the digital driver's license, the digital photo card will be available through the Service New South Wales app, which has been now downloaded more than 3 million times. Downloads of the app have been propelled in recent weeks by the government's Service New South Wales QR code check-in requirements at hospitality venues and other businesses. According to the government, more than 32 million COVID-safe check-ins have been registered through the app as of January 15. Penrith member Stuart Ayres, who doubles as the state's Jobs and Investment Minister, said the trial will test the functionality of a digital photo card before a statewide rollout. More than 970 individuals currently hold a photo card across the state. The digital photo card is hosted securely on the Service New South Wales app, which is locked with a PIN. I encourage Penrith residents to give it a go and let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Like that. Have you downloaded the digital photo ID, or you don't have it up there?
No.
No. I got mine, and don't think you can screenshot somebody's, because when you move it, it's like the hologram that you have on your driver's license. It has a moving image below it, so you can't just take a photo of somebody else's one. Or send me a screenshot. I want to be 18 this week, and I'll just put my photo on it.
That's why you record a video of it.
Yeah.
Because there's no way a video could be moving, right?
Aussie Tech Heads does not endorse what Will said. Except Will is Aussie Tech Head, so maybe.
So a couple of things interesting in, I guess, technological circles that happened on this day, because I found one and then discovered a couple of others. So I'll start with a couple of others. In 1922, Ford buys out Lincoln. So the Ford Motor Company acquires the failing luxury automaker Lincoln Motor Company for $8 million.
Wow.
Which Ford at that time, that was in 1922. Ford was founded in 1903, so Ford was 19 years old. They were losing market share with like General Motors because General Motors had more luxurious lines. Yep. And Ford based on cheap and, get them out the door as cheaply as possible to the consumer. But there was
they had an assembly line from the mining and smelting stuff all the way through a produced car.
Yep. So theirs was, based on speed and efficiency to make the cheapest car possible, which worked for a few years. But then come the 20s, people started wanting a bit of luxury, and the coach building industry started to spring up again. Hence Ford bought Lincoln and started making, Cadillac style cars, really luxurious sort of vehicles. Not Cadillacs, but Cadillac style. Also tech related, Disney releases Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs on February 4th, 1938.
Oh, I remember it well.
So 90, what's that? No, 90? No, 84, 85 years ago? Something like that. Anyway. A while ago. And that was their first sort of look at us, we're here to stay sort of, major film. It at the time when they made it, they had to borrow $1.5 million that it cost to make the movie because they didn't have enough money to make the movie.
Now they make billions and own everybody.
I mean, you got to remember, it was in the middle of the Great Depression.
Yep.
It was 38, yeah, smack bang in the middle of, Great Depression. It was.
That's when places like Warner Brothers and that were trying to establish as well, weren't they?
Yeah, and it cost them $1.5 million to make. It grossed. Keeping in mind that this is the Great Depression, it grossed $8 million.
Nice.
In those days' money, which is, who knows, but inflation, that's probably $100 million movie now.
Yep.
That's insane. Given that that's, that sort of profit margin on anything back then was ridiculous. Not just something at the cinemas, or the the pictures, the moving pictures, as they were. So, but that was and then they re-released Snow White in '44 during World War II, and then they released it on and off over the next decade. Then remastered it at '93 for the digital remastering. Yeah, so it's nominated as number 1 animated film of all time. But the main one that I found,
Before you do that, highest grossing animation at domestic box office, inflation adjusted, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs from 1937 in today's money, $1.2 billion.
Wow, I was way off. I didn't realize inflation was that much. Holy crap! $8 million back then, $1.2 billion. That's probably higher than anything else's gross. It wouldn't be.
Well, they re-released it in subsequent years, so all up they took 184 million.
That's nuts. That's oh, okay. That's including the re-releases. Yeah, that makes a bit more sense. So, but yeah, on February 4th, 2004. See how far I get through this before you figure out who it was. A Harvard sophomore launches this platform on social media website he'd built in order to connect Harvard students with one another. Any guesses?
Something to do with a book.
By the next day, over 1,000 people had registered, and that was only the beginning. Now simply known as a social media site, the site quickly ballooned into one of the most significant social media companies in history. Today, it's one of the most valuable companies in the world with over 2 billion monthly active users. So for those who haven't figured it out yet, Facebook was launched in 2004 by a Harvard sophomore named Mark Zuckerberg.
Who wanted to meet chicks.
Yep, that's literally the reason he invented it. But yeah, basically whatever his actual
necessity
reason was,
is the mother of invention.
But he basically he
wanted it so all the girls would upload their photos and name, address, phone numbers and stuff so he could find something to hit on.
Well, that was the unofficial party line. He's never actually confirmed that, but he's also never actually denied that. So
no, because it makes you sound like a cool stud, doesn't it? Cool stud nerd.
But basically, yeah, it wasn't very. It was built for internal use, and then really, really quickly, within the first 24 hours, 1,500 of their students to sign up, and he kind of got the idea that, okay, maybe this can actually work outside of just the university, you know.
Winklevoss got very upset with him.
Yeah, well, you know, only because he was using
the Winklevi.
only because he was using school property for the privilege.
I reckon they came up with the idea and got him to start making it. Then he took their idea and started making it on his own and didn't make their one.
I mean, well, they lost their court case like 5 times, haven't they? Or they win the last one? Or they just settled out of court?
Money with their stuff.
I was going to say, didn't he just give them a heap of money to make them go away because he was sick of them?
Probably.
So, but yeah, it was the first sort of also amongst all of that kind of the Web 2.0 reincarnation sort of appeared, you know, with using CSS scripts and stuff rather than using, you know, Java code and Flash sites.
All the other horrible things that have now gone away, thankfully.
So yeah, so that was 2004. 2004, yeah. So that was, you know,
17 years ago.
And as much as things have changed, they've stayed exactly the same. In a lot of regards, hasn't changed at all. So
I've got one quick one to finish up. Security researchers have discovered multiple vulnerabilities in the popular Realtek 8195A Wi-Fi module, the most severe of which allows attackers in radio range to fully compromise the card. The attack, described by Vidu researchers, overflows a memory buffer during initial connection access negotiations and doesn't require knowledge of the network pre-shared key for authentication. Vidu found that the stack-based buffer overflow attack works regardless of the RTL 8195 module being in Wi-Fi access point or client mode and allows remote code execution or denial of service attacks. Realtek has acknowledged the vulnerability, which It affects the RTL 8195 AM, RTL 8711 AM, RTL 8177 AF, and RTL 8710 AF modules used in the many Internet of Things applications. The network device company's Amoeba Arduino 208 has patches for the above vulnerability and 5 others found by Voodoo. Security researcher Dr. Matthew Van Hoof, who discovered the crack key reinstallation attack in the Wi-Fi protected access version 2 protocol in 2017, said the vulnerability looks serious as it doesn't require knowledge of the Wi-Fi password. Seems like this chip is mostly used by IoT devices, so you can abuse it to gain control over IoT devices that use the chip. An attacker can also abuse it to gain access to someone's Wi-Fi network if it contains vulnerable IoT device. Van Hoof said the best practice was to treat IoT devices as insecure by default. And as we say, the S in IoT is for security.
That's it, exactly. Yeah, it's I mean, on the upside to that is most IoT devices are relatively harmless at this point. You're going to get like somebody's weather station or somebody's, foot traffic
Hopefully
counter.
It's not your security camera.
I mean, those have their own vulnerabilities. They don't need more.
Yeah,
But-
we had, what was it, the Myra vulnerability last year. You could hack into anybody's Wi-Fi camera if you want to look in their house.
Most most IoT stuff at the moment is relatively not relatively innocent, so it's not going to be a huge deal for the most part.
Hopefully
But
it'll be inside your home network anyway.
a lot of them are, yeah. I mean, but even I've heard stories of people finding IoT devices behind vending machines and just random places and not knowing what they are, but they've usually got a contact us sticker on them, and you ring them up and you go, oh, that was just a traffic counter that counted the amount of people walking past, or, relatively innocent devices generally. So I'm not saying it can't be used for nefarious, but it's generally not. So, but...
Any more for you?
I don't know, is there? It is Alice's. Alice's. Wow.
Alice's restaurant.
That's it.
You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
That's
Walk
exactly
out.
right. It's Alice's restaurant's birthday today. It's Alice Cooper's birthday today.
Wow.
1948.
Vincent.
Born Vincent Furnier. Yeah, Furnier. Yeah, Furnier.
Furnier, yeah.
Born in Detroit, Michigan. So there you
It
go.
was the band's name, and then he decided to take it on because it sounded cool and people like it as personified.
Well, that was like, wasn't it Diesel or whatever it was? Another one of those. Was it Diesel? Another one of those guys did it as well. Or Jovi. Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi. Whatever he was. There was also
Starting to sound Dutch now.
Von Bon Jovi. Yeah, it's the Dutch version. It's also Charles Lindbergh's birthday, 1902, American aviator. Also born
He's a
in
real high flyer.
Also born in Detroit, Michigan. So
What a
there's
place.
something in the water there.
You don't want to go to Detroit now, but back
It's
then
back
it was
then.
probably kicking.
And it's also the only other one. These are just at the tail end of that other story I was reading. I was scrolling through. I thought, oh, that's interesting. The only other one I noticed was it was Ludwig van. No, actually not Beethoven. Was it Beethoven? I can't find. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it said Beethoven. Oh no, Bach. There we go. Johann Ludwig Bach. There's too many Ludwigs. That's the problem.
Johann.
It's Bach's birthday as well. German composer,
Nice.
born in 1677.
It was funny, a radio station I worked at, there was a lady who did the classical show and her name was Joanne Strauss.
You'd
True
almost
story.
You'd almost have to be into classical music
have
with that
to.
name. When it's kind of you don't have a lot of choice at that point.
Nice lady, yeah. Thanks for listening to the Aussie Tech Heads show, broadcast weekly. We can be found at facebook.com/Aussie Tech Heads, twitter.com/Aussie Tech Heads, and youtube.com/Aussie Tech Heads. Also now at patreon.com/Aussie Tech Heads. Sign up for $4 a month, $10 a month, or from several other tiers. See the site for details. We now have an extra episodes of Aussie Tech Heads just for Patreon, so sign up if you want to access those. If you're already a subscriber, you should receive an email when we upload them. If not, log on to Patreon and watch us. and coffee.com/Aussie Tech Heads. It's ko-fi.com. Make a one-off donation of any size. You can email us at glenn@wheelerwarlock @aussietechheads.com.au. You can hear Aussie Tech Heads on aussietechradio.com, 24/7 back-to-back play of some of the best tech-related shows from around Australia and New Zealand. New shows added each Friday. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye everybody.
See ya.